Hello and welcome to this edition of Beyond the Politics, a regular examination of the events happening right here in the Quinte region and the people who work so hard behind the scenes to make it all happen. I'm your host, Paul Martin. Joining me for my first show of season number 4 is a man who needs no introduction, Belleville Mayor Neil Ellis.
Good morning or good afternoon, everyone.
There you go. Whatever, it's a different time of day depending on when people are seeing it this time.
Well, congratulations, 4 years. And
yes.
I'm the first out of the gate on your 4th year. So.
Well, there are so many things to talk about in the largest local municipality. I think it was only appropriate to have you in for this. And let's start with, speaking of big, doesn't get bigger globally than Amazon. Of course, the Amazon warehouse, now public, has been under construction for quite some time. Worst kept secret in city's history for about
Never
a year.
heard of Amazon.
Yeah, well, it's going to be a short talk then.
Yeah.
But it's getting close to completion. It's supposed to be operating by the end of this calendar year, more or less. So what's been going on with Amazon, and how big an addition has that been for Belleville, even just in terms of the city's profile?
Huge, and I mean, profile-wise, definitely. And when you look at the size of the building, it's just over 1 million square foot. And I was lucky to tour the building with some city staff about 3 weeks ago, and the building is basically completed. They were working on the cafeteria, the racking starting to go up, and they were hoping to be online before Christmas. And obviously they want to do the Christmas as a large majority of their business. So I believe right now they're starting to hire. I've seen that out there, and the site's finished basically. So it's good to welcome to the community. Job numbers still are not been divulged, but it's going to be in the hundreds, obviously, and as they ramp up, it'll even be more. And what it is a big package facility, so it's a unique one to Canada. I believe they only have one more that handles all the bulk goods, couches, chairs, things like that. So a lot of it's going to be manual labor as opposed to automated, so there should be quite a few jobs there, and it's a new concept. When you look at our industrial park now to add Amazon, we have Fortune 500 companies up there, Kellogg's, we have a huge transportation vision. They've just basically put up 1 million square foot also. But the issue, and I think we're going to talk about, is industrial land.
Now, and P&G, of course. But when you talk about companies of that profile, that size, that magnitude, how great does it feel as the mayor of Belleville to know they chose Belleville to do business?
Definitely great, and I mean, it speaks volumes to our workforce. They obviously look at workforce, and if we can provide employees that are actually going to stay, and there's a lot of loyal employees out there, and they look at location. And when you look at our location, being smack dab in the middle of basically from Montreal to Toronto, it's a good location that they can go either way. And we've had actually businesses in. We're still in business to attract, and they're impressed when you take them through the industrial park, and they look at the household names that are there, and one that I didn't mention and you did is Procter & Gamble. And we have Auto Systems, which have I believe 2 or 3 plants, Hala, which is I know they've changed their name, automotive plant too. So lots of times there's for help wanted signs in the industrial park, so it's good to see that jobs are out of there and are being hired. Yep. And it's just fantastic to see these companies set up.
On a more positive note, we have a new fire chief in Belleville, someone who was overseeing this, and now his first 9/11 ceremony at Fire Station 1, that being Dan Smith. So what can you say about the process to bring him in, and what has he brought to the role to this point?
Dan basically was a deputy chief, and we looked at his appointment to chief. There was lots of applications, but Dan stood above them all, and I think it's always very important. I feel if you can hire within, it sends a message to our staff that there's possibilities of moving up. And the men and women that serve the fire service have said that this is probably the best relationship with City Council, obviously, and the chief in 30 years. So that speaks volumes to how he's doing it. He's again, fire services have not had any people hired or new or expanded since the 60s. And we look at the growth that we talked about in both our industrial park and out in the Thurlow Ward. He's put a plan to, we have to go out and hire. So you're going to see more fire people on the ground, and the same with police. The last time police, we hired 4 in the last budget, but they haven't had any hires since 2015. And you go back to expansion. Another subject we'll talk about homelessness and how that's affected them. So we're at the perfect storm now, and growth is good, but it taxes your infrastructure, your human capital, and our council here have to look at saying, you know, how are we going to bring those departments forward for the growth that we have. And the police, I know Chief Callahan was very happy that we did 4, but that only adds 1 person to a platoon. Mm-hmm. And when you look at both fire services and police, with 90 or so police and fire, I believe, is in the 60s. There's somebody that's on holidays that basically, so they're down 1 person, you know, throughout the platoons that they have. So council has a plan with fire, and the police board again has a plan they're going to put forward for next year's budget. And I think that overall we have to support our emergency services for the growth we have and the issues we have in the city.
And there are lots of different ways to do that. Just recently, Belleville okayed 2 new fire trucks. One was to replace one that was not operational anymore. One was just an upgrade for a very old machine. How important is it to give them the most up-to-date tools possible? And of course, when you talk about vehicles, that's basically where it starts. Yeah,
and 2 things about fire. Your house insurance, insurance companies look at our fleet. And there's so many years that each person, whether it's a pumper or a ladder truck, can stay in service. And I think, you know, I say a ladder truck's around 15 years and a pumper's in that range too. After the sense of they get to that stale date, the Insurance Institute look at our fleet, and if we don't have a proper fleet, house insurance is going up for you and I and everybody out there. The chief came with a plan, and we've done an emergency buy basically about 3 council meetings because they were down to 2 trucks that were basically broken, and I think all the pumpers were in that shape. We have to look at fleet management, and you look at fire trucks. When I was here 12 years ago, we started looking at fleet. We replaced, I believe, 4 or 5 trucks at the time, but there hasn't been a lot of replacement since then, and the fleets wore out. So I've asked the chief, and I asked him in open session, that we need to get a plan that we have replace fleet before it wears out. And I know some cities, like I believe Pickering, keep their fire apparatus about 10 years, and then they were able to sell them to another smaller department that can have a life of another 5 and 10 years and get some money out of them. But we've been historically running our equipment till the end of the Insurance Institute, and they end up being sold as parade trucks or things like that. So it's important fleet management. I firmly believe in it, and they're on track to do that. But a lot of the fleet has to be replaced, and it's the same as our transit. And we're dealing with buses that are, you know, well over 10 years old, you know, repairing the motors, transmissions, and things like that. So we're gonna have to replace some buses, and it's time to look at doing that now, because if you don't, we just don't have the equipment to, you know, provide the excellent service that we're expected to do.
Let's talk about something that also was not a municipal responsibility until Belleville decided to make it that, which was doctor recruitment. Of course, you were the mayor when the doctor recruitment program began here in the Friendly City, and now it's expanded, and including this year, of course, the new nursing scholarship that got added. How happy have you been to see this program not only maintain, but grow and expand in terms of being able to provide more resources for people to locate here?
Yeah, got to give kudos to Karen Post. She was economic development, and that's where doctor recruitment started. She's led the program, and we've attracted over 40 doctors since my council started it back in, I believe it was 2016. At the time, we recruited in 2 years 19 or 20 family physicians, and we were about, at that time, 10,000 orphan patients. We were successful back then to basically have it down to everybody had a family doctor. And you know, it could have been my mistake that we ended up bringing it down to two doctors a year financially to recruit them on the scholarship, as it's $150,000 a year. But then the next councils, and I'm not trying to bash anybody, we raised the population by 7,000 people. and we never raised how many we were going to recruit. And a lot of the cities are surrounding us and everywhere have gone to full-time doctor recruiters, which gives them the advantage. I was at a doctor recruitment fair with Karen Post about 6 months ago, and I believe there was 31 communities there recruiting now. So that's how big it is growing since we basically started it with Hastings County, back more than 10 years ago. It's been a tough sled. We've had a lot of doctors in. Karen's working around at least 15 doctors, and out of them we've had trips of, I believe, around 6 future family physicians visit Belleville. A lot of them are still 3 or 4 years out, so they're shopping communities, but they've seen what Belleville offers, and they've been very positive. So hopefully there'll be some news on that, but it's tough sledding out there with all the communities. Karen now has met with Quinte West and Prince Edward County, which also have full-time doctor recruiters, and look at how can we mix and make our recruit together. And
just under a minute. Strong mayor powers were expanded.
Yeah.
Can you give me a 20-second? Why is that not the right way for Belleville?
I think, again, mayors tend to vote about 95% of council vote with the mayor. In the planning end, it's for basically planning issues. I don't think there's a subdivision that's gone through planning that's ever been turned down. So we do have the lots ready to go. Some cities don't. So the power might be used by the mayor in that case. There's some other things it makes you more of an American-style mayor that you can get involved in the day-to-day. There are, a few things in there that we already have in the strong mayor power. You can pick committees and chairs of committees, but that's the way it's done here. So, council, I know, are going to bring a motion for not to accept the small mayor policy or the big mayor policy or strong. Sure. But if you don't sign up, then you don't get your bonus for housing. So it's a catch-22. You don't become a strong mayor, then you're going to lose $2 or $3 million by not signing.
So we'll be keeping our eye on that. Thank you for giving us this update on the state of Belleville. Mayor Neil Ellis, this is Beyond the Politics.
Thank you, Paul, for having me in.